Oh, ciao a tutti! Welcome to episode number 3 of Movies and Chill with the Signore Giuseppe.
Ciao.
Ciao. Come stai?
I'm alright. You?
Bene. Grazie. Alright, so today is not a movie. Today it's a series that we are both already going nuts on, like already in the backstage. It is Boardwalk Empire from 2010. Already 10 years old.
It's crazy to think so, yeah.
Yeah, so what was like the first time that you got like that you saw the series and all the good stuff?
I can remember, as you know, we've been talking about this now for a while. I've always loved the, organized crime, mafia stuff, and I never really was real big into the Atlantic City scene. That was something that I was always into, like the New York stuff, Chicago, and even Vegas to a certain extent, like the stuff that happened out there, but not so much Atlantic City. I can remember a couple of years before this series came out, I actually went to Atlantic City with my family and my brother, and we went around and hit up the casinos and all this kind of stuff, and I thought it was really cool. And then I remember walking through the parking lot of my university I was going to school at, studying, and I was walking through a parking lot, and my one buddy goes, "Hey, Joey," and he comes over and he's like, "Did you hear?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "Scorsese's producing something with Mark Wahlberg on HBO. It's called Boardwalk Empire. It's a series about Atlantic City, New Jersey, and prohibition and gangsters and stuff." I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
So back then, I had HBO and I could watch it. So I watched like the first couple episodes, and then we got HBO out, so I couldn't watch it. So I only got to see like 2 or 3 episodes, but I loved it. And I always wanted to see it, but I could never watch it. And then eventually, when it came out on DVD, I bought the DVD up here, and then I just bought the whole series after that. I just waited for DVDs to come out and watch it, but I loved it every time I saw it. I mean, it was amazing. That's how I got introduced to the series and started watching it. But
yeah, well, I have too.
What about you? Did you wait till DVD or?
Well, let me see. Is there glare? There's no glare. Or don't drop, because then the pretty boy might drop too. Well, I think about 15, 14 years ago, I bought this mafia book because a lot of people in my friend circle tend to call me the mafia girl. So I bought the book that I recommended you yesterday to get, The First Family, which is the first family of New York, which is the Morello family, which turned later into the Mazzaria family and then into the Luciano family. So I was getting like whole interested that whole family tree, and then you had those TV manual guides, and it said that it was going to premiere a show from HBO, and it's called Boardwalk Empire. I was like, okay, cool. Let's see what this is about. They're like gangsters. It's like, okay, got my attention. Prohibition. Oh, New York. Woo! And then the names started dropping. Lucky Luciano, Al Capone, Arnold Rothstein. I was like, I have to watch this. And I saw the first few episodes, but then it kind of, I think it went, no, not off TV, but I think they changed the day at one point that I just didn't know anymore. Like, when the fuck is it on TV? So I just got actually the special edition DVD box that I told you about, the big one, where you also had that tin can where you can put alcohol in, which says Boardwalk Empire. Which is pretty fucking cool. I think it actually contains season 1 and 2, but I think I have season 1 double. Because, and there it goes. He's falling for Luciano.
Unlucky Luciano.
Yeah, well, he's lucky he's in my room now. This series is pretty fucking awesome. But, of course, when you know a bit about the characters that they're talking about, the real life characters, it's kind of, in a way, also disappointing. But before we get started, there are so many characters in this series, and I told you to get a top 5. So out of all the characters, who stood out most to you? So let's start with your number 5, and then we do my number 5 and 4.
All right, yeah, sure.
Hmm.
We kind of talked about this a little bit before. I think number 5 for me. Don't hate me. Don't hate me for this because I know you love him. But Lucky Luciano in season 1 of Boardwalk Empire for me is number 5. And like I said, this has nothing to do with the actual historical figure or the rest of the series because he's in the rest of the series. This is strictly just season 1. I just think he's a little underdeveloped. He's not used enough in the first series, in my opinion. And I think it's because a couple of other characters I'll talk about, they just don't want these really well-known characters like Lucky Luciano and other names that we'll mention to overshadow the title character and the whole story of, in the series, his name is Nucky Thompson, but in real life, his name was Nucky Johnson, that character. So yeah, Lucky for me is number 5. I mean, Vincent Piazza does a really good job portraying him, but there's also things about him physically that we talked about this too, that they could have picked somebody who looked more like Lucky.
Yeah.
So that's why he's at the bottom of my list at number 5 because of that.
Well, I can accept that. For me, my number 5, it's kind of like a tie down.
Yeah.
It's Richard Harris, which is kind of like the Two-Face guy, the sniper, the amazing sniper guy. I think he is. Well, he's not used a lot, but this is, I think, also kind of based on what's going to happen in the other season. That I'm like, oh, he's so cool. But I really like how they portray him first as like the scary guy, like I was like, oh, really? We go that road. And also how the Margaret's child is screaming at him. It's like I can only imagine when a kid sees that first thing in the morning, like, and the other / sharing number 5 is Margaret Schroeder, or Schroeder, as she says. She is an interesting character. Of course, we will talk about her more later on because we will go more in depth with these characters. But her transition, and it only gets worse, but you already see it changing so much throughout season 1. You're like, God damn, girl. So who's your number 4?
My number 4. I mean, we mentioned this before in some of the previous movies and show we did about like people that I thought were fascinated with when I was younger, and like the true crime stuff. And Al Capone for me in this series is number 4. I like Stephen Graham as an actor. He did a really good job portraying Al Capone. I think like the voice, his New York accent is really good. If you guys don't know who Stephen Graham is, he plays Al Capone in this series. He plays Tony Pro in The Irishman, Tony Provenzano. He plays Babyface Nelson in Public Enemies with Johnny Depp. So he's pretty good at doing the gangster thing. But Sana and I mentioned this earlier. Same criticisms with his character for me as with Lucky Luciano. Vincent Piazza's Lucky Luciano is the design of the character. Like Al Capone had a really big jawline. He had really big cheeks. He was a heavier, husky kind of looking guy. Stephen Graham is a little bit bigger built than like Vincent Piazza, for instance, but he's not like hefty or big like Capone was. And Capone in real life, I mean, he was from New York City, 5 Points gang that was basically created by Luciano, and then he went to Chicago in his 20s to become a basically like a bodyguard and a right-hand man to Johnny Torrio, who was the crime boss of Chicago until Capone took over. So same things though. I mean, same criticisms. They kind of don't get enough screen time in this for me, and I feel like those two characters in particular, like I said, it's a bias because Sana and I know the history of these guys. We read about these guys. We feel like they're kind of not represented enough. So for me, those are why they're number 5 and number 4, because in real life, those two guys wouldn't take shit from Nucky Thompson, Nucky Johnson. They would have probably killed him. So in this, they're taking all kinds of shit from him. He's slapping him around and doing shit, but that would have never happened in real life. So
No, and my personal opinion is that Al Capone probably wasn't even necessary in season 1 because he isn't in it as much and is usually just tied to um, Jimmy Darmody, but fuck it, that will be for later. My number 4 is Nucky Thompson because I do, I do like Steve Buscemi. I love how he plays his character. He is a very strong character, but on the other hand, I'm like, you would have been dead like fucking weeks ago
yeah.
with the shit that he does. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, to see the character development between him and Margaret, it's kind of like similar. It's just they're really opposites of each other, but yet they're the same. So I really like that. So hence why he is on my top 5. But yeah, let's go to your number 3.
Well, number 3 for me is Richard Horrow, the guy you mentioned at 5.
Yeah.
Jack Huston's an awesome actor. He's really, really awesome doing this character. This was the first time I got introduced to Huston. If you guys don't know who he is, he also plays in the movie The Irishman. He plays, I think, Bobby Kennedy in that movie. And he's also in the remake of Ben-Hur. He plays Ben-Hur, the title character. But Jack Huston is amazing as Richard Horrow. Like Sona said earlier, like the Phantom of the Opera shit. Like he's a monster. But the thing I love about that too is his character in this season, you don't really get to see him grow that much. But another thing I want to mention, and I think it really hits home with his character, for instance, because you kind of mentioned this with Margaret Schroeder, is how you can take somebody who is really fighting against evil, but at the same time, like, they kind of get wrapped up in this whole Atlantic City prohibition gangster life somehow. And that's exactly what happens to Richard Horrow. Like, he's unaccepted by people because of his appearance. Nobody thinks he's anything. Half of his face is gone. He wears like a prosthetic mask for half of his face. Yeah. And it's funny because Son and I talked about this earlier. We talked about it in our Goodfellas stream. We even talk about it to an extent in The Godfather, how all these people are human beings. And like, even though they live larger than life and these super luxurious and lavish lives, Richard Horrow is number 3 for me because he's really looking for acceptance. Nobody accepts him, but this family, Margaret Schroeder, Nucky Thompson, Jimmy Darmody, all these people accept him for who he is, and they use him, so to speak. He was a sniper, a marksman in World War One, and he does some really cool shit in this first season. And some of the shit that he does, I mean, it's legend. And as like a military historian and a law enforcement guy myself, and a guy who's fascinated with firearms and all that kind of stuff, one scene I love with him, Sona, is when he's talking to Jimmy, and he's talking to some of the gangsters, and he's talking about the firearms he has. He talks about the Colt. He talks about, Colt feels really good in the hand. He's like, I like the way it shoots, how to defend yourself. And he says, a Mauser. I have a Mauser. I have a... He lists like 5 different guns off that he used from the war, and Jimmy's like, shit. Guy's pretty badass.
Gotta have it.
It's so cool.
Yeah. I just like he really leaves his mark in the series for me when he shoots the guy from a distance.
I was just gonna say that's my favorite.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Like, okay.
So good. So good.
What number were we at?
3. That was 3 for me.
My number 3 is Van Alden.
Nelson Van Alden.
Oh, like he is a head case from episode 1. Like he is dealing with some demons.
He is.
Damn. He's dealing with demons with his wife not being able to get kids. Then he sees Margaret Schroeder, this lady that gets into a really bad situation, and he kind of like gets fantasies with her, with looking at her picture, and then he turns the picture around and sees that she's only 16 years old, and the picture starts like yeah. And then his entire development, like, you don't know whose side he's on. Well, he's on his own side, but he doesn't even know what side he's on. He definitely is one of my favorite characters, but also in season 2 and 3, and probably even in 5 and 6, if he makes it that far.
You'll see.
So number 2.
Number 2 for me is Jimmy Darmody. He's actually based on a character named Jimmy Boyd in real life, who worked for Nucky Johnson in the 4th Ward of Atlantic City. He was like he met him through a bunch of other people at some party that Nucky was throwing, because all that stuff with the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Atlantic City and all that shit is real. Like, Nucky Johnson actually lived in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. He used to wear like $1,500 raccoon-made fur coats. Like, the guy was like legitimate. Like, as you see him, the red carnation and everything, that's real shit. Like, he actually did that. So Jimmy Boyd was Nucky's like right-hand man in real life, kind of like Jimmy Darmody sort of is in this series, and he's based on that character to a certain extent. But obviously they deviated a little bit for a dramatic effect to make it more of a series that's kind of like a fictionalized version of history as opposed to the real life thing. But Jimmy Boyd was to be groomed to be Nucky's second in command after Nucky left and, you know, left his position as the treasurer or whatever he was of Atlantic City. But obviously Jimmy in the series, you'll see what happens to him, but he doesn't really do that.
He got some fucked up family.
He does. Jimmy Boyd, the real life character, actually served in World War II later in life. In this series, Jimmy Darmody served in World War I, and he's just coming back from the war to come back to Atlantic City to basically reacquaint himself with Nucky and to try to get work and to try to get jobs and to do all that stuff. And they make him like a Princeton student who went to college, and that's allegedly where he met his wife Angela, and they had a kid named Tommy. But then Jimmy goes to the war, and Angela's pregnant with Tommy, but she finds her way to Atlantic City, and then she finds Jimmy's mom, who pretty much gives her money through Nucky, is like bribing Nucky to give Angela money to raise Tommy in Atlantic City. And then I just like Tommy's, much like Richard, it's kind of a similar thing, but I think it's a little different because Richard kind of gets drawn to that because he's looking for acceptance, and Jimmy kind of is too, in a way, because he never really had a father. Like, his dad was kind of like, I think in the series at some point they say his dad was like in his 50s when his mom was only 13 when he got her pregnant and she had Jimmy. So like, he never really had a father figure, and that's why he looks up to Nucky to a certain extent, and he wants to be like Nucky. But
Nucky doesn't give him the good big job that he so badly, or at least he thinks he deserves. So what do you get then? You get ballsy people start making mistakes.
And I like that critique though, because it's really cool and it shows you how, like, because Jimmy's a vet, like he served in the war. And I really like the relationship with him and Richard a lot. I really love that component. Richard doesn't even come till like halfway through the first season. But like when they're on together on screen, like Michael Pitt and Jack Huston, they have like really amazing scenes. Like that scene we just talked about with Richard where he shoots the guy who slashed Jimmy's pretty much lover in Chicago when he left to go up there to work with Capone and Johnny Torrio. Like when he taps him on the shoulder and then you see the shot. Like that whole scene before that where Jimmy's talking about what it was like to be in the war, when he was like, there was a German, he's like, we were in the French forest, he crawled through barbed wire and got stuck, He's like, I shot him once below the eye and once in the stomach, and he just whined and cried for his mother. He kept saying Muti, Muti, which means mother, mama. He's like, he just kept saying it, but he kept fighting. He just wouldn't die. He's like, I walked over to him multiple times and told him that I would kill him, but he just kept fighting and kept fighting. And the guy's like sitting there like, holy shit. Because he asked him if he serves in the war, and this guy like dodged the draft and everything. He didn't have to serve, but he's a gangster in Chicago. He's the guy who slashed Jimmy's like girlfriend in Chicago's face, like this war in Chicago. And then he basically marks him when he taps him on the shoulder, and that's when you see like this pitcher of water like shatter, and then they look over and he's just like laying there, and it's right below his eye, all this blood's pouring out of his head. But that scene was cool too with Richard and him, because Richard said when he had the mask of the German soldier, he said it took him 3 days to lift the mask to scratch his nose, and that's where I put a bullet right below his eye. And he does the exact same thing to the mafia guy who slashed Jimmy's girl. So I thought like just that relationship they have together, and Jimmy's like, the thing I love about Jimmy and why he's 2 on my list is I could see him being the leader of Atlantic City, just like Sana said. If given the right opportunity to prove himself, he would have been like amazing. But that's why I love his character so much, because he's so troubled. He always gets the short end of the straw. He never gets what he wants. He's always screwed over, it seems. And it's like, damn, Jimmy, if you would just get an opportunity, like you feel for him, you're like, fuck, if somebody would just give him a chance.
Yeah, but also he had just returned, and if I said, as I said in the backstage, if we would have done this stream 10 years ago, Jimmy would definitely be like number 1 or number 2, because I really loved the first time I was watching the series. Like I was really feeling for Jimmy, like he just came back, but he's like, Nucky's like my dad, but he wanted everything too soon because, prohibition was starting. He saw people making money. He started talking with Al Capone. He was like, I want an opportunity too to make money. And wait, hold on.
Mercy. No, that's a good point though, Sana, because I guess what I'm trying to say is he in this series, he's kind of like a mirror image almost of Al Capone. They were both veterans. Al Capone married an Irish woman. Jimmy married an Italian woman. Like they both had a son. And like Al, though, see the difference is Al kept going and going and going, and eventually got everything he wanted, right? He eventually got to be the boss. He eventually got to do whatever he wanted. Whereas Jimmy got shit on. He didn't get any of it. So it's like they both wanted the exact same thing. One of them got it and one of them didn't. Even in the series, when Jimmy masterminds that plan to take over Greektown and kills that entire part of the Al didn't do that in the series. In the series he didn't do it. Jimmy did it. And Tori was like, I love this fucking Mick. He's amazing. Oh, blah, blah. What did he give for it, though? Like, he didn't get anything. He got he got nothing for it. Like, he didn't get a promotion.
Like Nucky told him, you are Irish. They are Italian. You will never be part of it.
And that's my point. That's my point. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. He's never accepted wherever he goes. Not by Nucky, who's Irish. He's Irish. Not by the Italians. It's like he's screwed everywhere he goes.
Yeah, but I guess his entire fate was already ruined when his mom got pregnant. I mean, she eventually, what you learn in the series, what she did to him, it's like,
yeah,
ew.
That's why I feel for him, though. That's why I feel so bad for him.
That's why, with season 2, like, no spoilers, but I was like, fuck this series. I'm so done with it. They are never going to be able to top this. Yeah, about that. They came back, and they came back hard. My number 2, I have to do it. But, of course, he's number 2, not number 1, because, as we stated before, he wasn't that good in this series. But I have to say, in season 1, he was the firecracker that he was kind of like known to be. Whereas I think in season 2 and 3, he slowly, as you said, like he becomes more like the pussy type of guy. Not this motherfucker right here. So I really also when he goes to Atlantic City to look for Jimmy, and he ends up with them all, blah 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 blah. But then Nucky is like, I want him here in the office. I want to talk with him, because Nucky doesn't want him in Atlantic City. And you know, how Nucky like hits him on the head and how he just like, you know, just this rage like that. He was known for that, you know. So, but later on, but that's for a different show. But yeah, it's also they could have used him a lot more, and they really kind of also make him look like a wimp at times. And I do find it a bit unfortunate that they really put like the what's it called, emphasis on the fact that he had like a dick problem. Like, are you really just going to make this dude right here that is soon to be in real life the king of New York? You just gotta like portray him as like, oh yeah, he has dick problems.
My dick
Like,
don't work. It
yeah,
don't work. It just don't
it
work.
don't work, eh?
It works with Jimmy's mom, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dear. But more about Luciano later. Who is your numero uno?
Just like you did with your number 5, I did the half thing. I did the because it was hard for me to pick between these two at number 1.
Yeah.
Prohibition agent Nelson Van Alden and the king of Atlantic City, Nucky Thompson. They're my number 1. They're tied for that because, much like I kind of said with Jimmy, I feel like if Nelson was involved in organized crime, he could have been a good boss. Like, he's really structured. He's really smart. He really knows his shit. He's really like by the book. He's a lot like Nucky. Like, they're kind of like
Oh yeah.
eyes on the same coin. Like, they're both really structured. They're both really good at what they do. But Nucky is obviously doing this, I feel like, for a longer period of time, because before, Nucky was the sheriff of Atlantic City. He was a lawman. He was involved in the political stuff. Then he kind of became like the treasurer. I think in real life, Nucky Johnson held like 4 or 5 esteemed positions for Atlantic City. He was the treasurer. He was the sheriff. He was like the vice president of some sort of organization, a bunch of other things. And he never ran for political office because he felt like it was below a boss to become a politician. Like, you were in the public too much. Like, you were just like, it kind of came with the set of responsibilities. And I think a line that Nucky says in the show that really sums that up to the real life Nucky Johnson is when he's like, everybody needs to figure out how much sin they can really live with. I love that line so much because it really describes the character and the whole show, really, because all these guys are human beings. Sana and I talked about Al Capone, and we talked about Lucky Luciano, and we talked about this yesterday a little bit. Like, Lucky and Al and even Nucky Thompson or Nucky Johnson in real life, like, gave people shit. Like, they gave people who couldn't afford things money. They helped people out. They really were like the Robin Hoods of where they were. The public loved Nucky Johnson. In this series, the public loves Nucky Thompson. Like, they love him. They think he's great. He's everywhere. He's having all these
He's a good manipulator.
He is. But
it's like his wife, or soon to be wife.
Exactly. But she gets that from him.
Yeah.
Right? But I think you can feel bad for him too, because there's a scene that I really like in this too, where the one concubine tells Margaret that if she really wants to know Nucky, she's going to have to get him to start admitting to things and see what he's up to. But she said she'd rather not do that herself, because when you start to know about your boyfriend or your lover's affairs, it makes them look weak, shows their flaws or whatever. So Margaret's kind of like using it against him, so to speak, to get him to like crack and give her information. And he tells her about his wife. And initially he said that she died of consumption, but then he reveals to Margaret that their son passed away and was dead like his little baby. And
6 days.
His wife took care of it like it was still alive for 6 days, changed its diapers, bathed it, tried to feed it, all kinds of stuff. And then Nucky said when he went over to hold it finally after like her doing it, he realized the baby was dead. And like his wife couldn't like live with the the death of their child. So she like went crazy and slit her wrist, and it's like, damn. So you kind of feel for him too. Like you kind of wonder if that event would have made him if that wouldn't have happened, would he have been the way he was? And to relate that to like real life history, Nucky Johnson, Mabel was his wife's name in real life. The story about the baby and stuff, I think that's just fabricated for TV. But I know that after his wife passed away, Nucky Johnson in real life, he used to be somebody who never touched alcohol. He wouldn't drink it. And then after his wife passed away in real life, Nucky Johnson, he became like an alcoholic. He drank all the time. So it's interesting to see like what life events cause people to do shit. You know, it's kind of like we just talked about Jimmy and how he like wanted everything too soon, but that's exactly how Nucky is. Nucky's like, give me it now. I want it now. So Jimmy kind of learned from him, and he was like, eh.
But also how he, you know, with Margaret, how, you know, she has 2 kids, and he really values that little family moment. Like, it's like an alternate reality for him, you know, like I could have had this, but I didn't. And yet it's not mine even now because I can still lose it. And that's what really scares him. And I think that's also, I mean, not to say that cheating is a good thing, but I think that's also the reason why he just cannot really fully commit to a person, because he is just so afraid that he will get like hurt again, like with his, you know, first wife, because you don't marry someone like, or maybe some people do marry just someone just to get married, but you know, but
yeah, he's a lot like Jimmy too, though, in the fact that they neither of them really had a father, because like he hates his dad, like Nucky hates his father, like he can't stand him. And that scene where he burns his house down, where he's like for the gasoline, it's like, oh shit, like he cannot stand his father, he hates him, like And the thing with Nucky is he has a really big chip on his shoulder, and deservingly so. Like he shafts his brother Eli all the time. He's like, "You're the little brother. I'm the one who's in charge. You wouldn't be where the hell you were if it wasn't for me." So it's kind of like, and in real life, Nucky Johnson's father actually was the sheriff of Atlantic City before Nucky was, and Nucky was his undersheriff. In real life, Nucky Johnson and his father actually had a better relationship. It wasn't like it was in the show, but they did it to relate. Yeah. But in the show, I love how they did it with his character, because they made the show really fucking entertaining by like intertwining all these characters together. Like you can see parts of Nucky and Jimmy. You can see parts of Al and Jimmy. You can see parts of both of those characters in Nucky. Van Alden, I said, was my second number one. He goes on this thing where he's like really strict about being this officer, and he wants to stop prohibition and not do any vices. He's like super religious. He's super devoted to his wife. He like writes her letters every day. Then all of a sudden he's like banging whores and drinking beer and fucking killing people. It's like, holy shit.
No. He baptizes people.
Oh yeah, he baptized them, right? I baptized them.
The devil has to come out.
There's a scene, guys. This series kicks ass. Like the first season is so fucking good, and like rewatching it was awesome because Nelson Van Alden's partner, Nelson Van Alden, by the way, is played by what's the guy's name? Michael Shannon. He's the guy who plays General Zod in Superman or Man of Steel. Fucking, he's an awesome actor. He plays Kuklinski the Iceman. He's an amazing actor. But
I believe he's even in Bad Boys too.
I think he is. I think you're right. But he's in a ton of shit. He's a really great actor, and he always portrays that kind of like hard ass character usually. And like he goes, his partner's name is Agent Sebso, and he works for the Prohibition Bureau in Atlantic City. They have like an office that's installed there. Like I think it's in the post office, or it's like beside the post office or something. Like it's the only federal building in Atlantic City or something. And Sebso, this whole time, you feel like he's just stupid, like he's dumb. You think he's just dumb and he's stupid. But as you watch the series, here comes a spoiler. Plug your ears now, guys, if we don't want to hear what happens. But the spoiler is Sebso is actually an agent for Nucky, and he's working so Nucky doesn't get in trouble. And when Michael Shannon's character, like figures out about this Van Alden, he doesn't really know for sure, but he has a suspicion, and he just acts on it. He goes and takes Sebso to this like congregation in this like lake or something where they're singing like Christian music, and he's about to be baptized, and it's Catholicism or something. It's like a thing. And he goes to baptize Sebso to wash away his sins and purify him. He fucking drowns him. Like, holy shit. And you'll see
because like the Lord chose to do this.
Yeah. He's like, he's been absolved, the demon, the devil's out of it. It's like, holy shit. But you'll see the ramifications of it later because it actually comes back to bite him in the ass later down the road. You'll see. It's pretty neat. Pretty awesome.
All right, so my number one is Arnold Rothstein.
It's a good pick. Good pick.
The actor himself is awesome, especially because having seen season 1, 2, and 3, he only gets better. But already in this season, he's just so calm and so collected, but he's so straight to the point. Like, sign a contract so you won't fuck with me. You know, that what he does with the brothers, or just also the small things, because in real life, you know, Lucky Luciano, he came from Sicily when he was 9 years old, so he couldn't really speak English, obviously. But eventually, Rothstein took him under his wing. He's like, "Come on, kid, I'll show you the ropes." And also, like, that small part where he kind of like corrects his English, like, "No, you're supposed to say it like this," or when they're both sitting at the, I think at a bar or at a casino, and one says to Rothstein, "Oh, it's because you're lucky." No, that's him. But oh god, he is so strategic, and just his face is just, yeah, you just don't know what's coming for you. You know, it's like he's very unpredictable. Like he could just look at you like this, and then already planning like, you're gonna die in 5 hours, or we're gonna have a drink. Something like that. Like, oh Jesus. Like, I only keep now thinking about a scene that happens in like season 3, I believe, where he just talks with Nucky, and he's like, "You want me to start a war in New York because you ain't got your shit together in Atlantic City?"
I think I did season 3, yeah.
Or just when he doesn't get the liquor, that he's like calling someone. "Yeah, why am I calling you? I shouldn't be calling you, but I am calling you because you didn't deliver, and don't make me call you again." Just because, you know, Mickey Doyle, who is also a great fucking character, like, he's one of those characters that you expect to die in season 1.
Yes, but he doesn't.
But he sticks around.
Yes.
He is also one of those characters that I really like his development as well. Especially, like, I think in season 3 he suddenly changes his name because he doesn't want to sound too Irish, but he
changed his name to Doyle because he don't want to sound Jewish. Then he changed it to something else because he wants to sound Irish.
he's just also just really an awesome character, and but there are so many more characters. Like, I took, you know, a bunch of notes because so let's see. Well, Margaret Schroeder. Let's start with her because she also has like this interesting development of character. You pretty much see her first where Nucky is like having this speech, you know, like, no more alcohol, and that he talks about this story about, you know, like a kid that was fighting for, you know, food on the table, and then he's like, and that kid is standing on the stage or the podium right now, and everyone's like, oh, you know, like
It's me, Nucky.
And you see Margaret kind of like being moved by it because, you know, she probably hopes that her kids won't have to do that because she is in an abusive relationship. So she kind of wants to talk to Nucky Thompson, like, hopefully, you know, he could pull some strings to get like a better job for my husband. And he gives her some money, and Jimmy drops off at home, and the husband just happens to see all of it and just loses his shit, start beating. Also, how the kid is crying in that scene, the daughter. Mama! It's like, whoa, who hit the kid before the scene, before they set action? But then, because he found the money under the mattress, she's like, no, that's the money for the children, and Mr. Thompson gave it. And then the next day, he's at the casino. Now,
Gambling away the money.
Nucky already was having a bad day because, he just got fucked in the ass by Rothstein and Luciano while they were sitting like really casually at the casino. So yeah, basically he just punched the shit out of the guy, which is a pretty violent scene. But, that,
Get him the fuck out of here.
yeah. But and of course you can expect, but I guess because Nucky was not really thinking straight, he was already angry because, as I said, he just got fucked in the ass already by Rothstein. You can only imagine that, of course, this guy who is a drunk is going to take it out on his wife as soon as he gets home. And he does that, and he basically starts beating her to shit, where she ends up in a hospital and loses the kid. And Nucky finds out about it when he's walking the street, and one of those older ladies come to him with this this gift that she has for him, and he's totally not impressed by it because he throws it in the trash. He's like, "Wow, fucking asshole." But yeah, she's like, "I cannot really talk about it, but she lost a child." So he kind of already knows, like, okay, that's actually my bad because I kind of like slept her husband around. I guess that's also the reason why he really feels guilty towards her. Yeah, so I because of my action she lost her child, and then I killed the husband because good riddance for everyone. But I guess he really felt just super guilty at the beginning, but
Yeah.
he's also just like a trash bag because
Yeah.
we'll talk about the trash he's been sleeping with.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I like Margaret too. I think she's I think that whole thing with her was the thing about the series too is like I love how they throw in like tidbits of historical accuracy in it. Like the whole temperance movement. Thanks, Kurt. Appreciate it, man. The whole temperance movement and everything in that was real. Like religions and all this kind of stuff said you're not supposed to drink alcohol because it's not good for your health. It makes men go away from their wives and doesn't give them time to spend family time and to have romance and all that kind of stuff. And they were having these temperance movements. What Sana said, Nucky speaks at one of the temperance things because he's like the head of Atlantic City, the treasurer, and he's like giving the speech, even though it's bullshit because he's a bootlegger, but he's has that facade on to the public like he's the greatest thing in the world. And people
I think he
believe
also
him.
did it because women were about to allowed to vote. So I guess he just does it to go with as a little snake.
If you guys don't know history, again, the 18th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States was the prohibition of alcohol. You're not supposed to transport, manufacture, deliver, buy any alcohol whatsoever. Didn't matter if you had a license or not. Alcohol was just like illegal. There was you weren't allowed to do it. But the 19th Amendment that followed like shortly after that was the women's right to vote. Doesn't matter what sex you are, male or female, you have the right to vote. That was the 19th Amendment. So like they were really close to one another in terms of like coming out. So this is like super historically accurate. So like Sana said, when Nucky was giving that speech, he was pretty much doing a campaign like, hey, vote for me, vote for the people I support, vote for the politicians that I'm going to hang out with and have parties with and do this with because they're great, right? We all think the same. And it works. Like like Sana said earlier, Nucky Thompson in this series, Nucky Johnson in real life was a really good political manager. He really was good at like propaganda and manipulation. Like he really was. So
like anyone that works for the government, right?
pretty much. I mean, like, and Son and I had a discussion about this earlier too. Like, the fascination with the stuff for us is like, are these guys really criminals because this is illegal prohibition? Now, Nucky Johnson and Nucky Thompson in the show, they did more than just alcohol. I mean, they did illegal gambling, illegal prostitution, all that stuff. But if you look at just prohibition, think about it this way, guys. In 1920, right? Prohibition. You're not allowed to have alcohol. It's illegal. However, they couldn't regulate it in Atlantic City. All these politicians and people went up and they were having wine and brandy and drinks in Atlantic City because it was a tourist destination. They couldn't regulate that. You had like boats and stuff coming from Canada and Mexico just giving people alcohol. There's no way you can stop that. Like, they didn't have enough prohibition agents to stop it. And the funny thing is, 13 years later, in 1933, the 21st Amendment of the Constitution was to renege the 18th Amendment for prohibition, and then alcohol became legal and people were allowed to drink it. And why? Because the government fucked up the economy. We went to the Great Depression, and the only way to make money back was to give people jobs selling and distributing alcohol. And hence the creation of the state store, right? Isn't it fascinating?
Yeah.
But they were criminals before, but now all of a sudden it's okay to sell and distribute alcohol. But before, you're not allowed to do it. You're a criminal. We're going to send a prohibition agent to you. And all of a sudden,
and then they realized how much money they were making. They're like, well, goddamn, we ain't getting a piece of that. We should be getting a piece of that. So number 13 comes in, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy when you think about it. Like, is it really what they were penalizing and imprisoning the mobsters for? They ended up doing themselves, the government. It's crazy, right? When you think about it.
Yeah, but if you look at a lot of things that organized crime did, they basically fucked over the government because it had to do something with tax, so it wasn't going to them. So then suddenly it is illegal.
You're right.
Like, Michael Francese, when he did the thing with going to gas stations, he did something that he would get a share from every gas station, and that's how he made like easily like millions a week. He was from the Colombo family.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's the same thing with Lucky Johnson. Like, in real life, he would get a piece of whatever alcohol was delivered. Right? Bourbon is legit. Yeah. He would get a piece of whatever alcohol was delivered, a percentage of it, and it wasn't taxed. What did Nucky Johnson go to jail for? He was supposed to serve, like, I think it was a 10-year sentence, and he got out because he served 4 years well. He got he went to jail for tax evasion. Same thing with Al Capone. He went to jail for, it was supposed to be 22 counts of tax evasion, but they only got him on, like, 4 or 5 counts of tax evasion, and he went to jail for like 8 years and then got out. Like, come on.
They don't have a foot to stand on.
I know, right?
That's why it's so interesting.
It is, though, because it makes you realize, like, we say this all the time. These guys are everyday people just like us. They found a loophole. I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying they found a loophole within the government and the regulations, and they became like multimillionaires. I think I read somewhere this actual show too, Boardwalk Empire, is based on a book called Boardwalk Empire, and it's by a guy named Nelson Johnson who wrote it. He was actually a New Jersey judge, and he wrote this book, and he said the reason why he wrote it is because he was doing research on Atlantic County, where Atlantic City is. That's where he became like the judge at. And he said he wanted to see what it was like in the past so he could see if he could do a better job because he was wondering the history of it. And he ended up like pulling up all this shit about like all these monsters and all this political shit and like all this conspiracy theories and all this like propaganda and all these like illegal activities and all this criminal shit that the politicians and everything were doing with mobsters and all this stuff. And he was like, damn, this is fascinating. So he started writing a book, and he came up with this book. And then Scorsese and Wahlberg were like, you mind if we yeah. Like, oh yeah.
I think basically Michael Corleone explained everything with just one sentence as reply to Kate in The Godfather Part 1, where Kate is like, but the government doesn't kill people because the organized crime, they kill people to get someplace. And she's like, yeah, but the government doesn't kill people. And he says like, no, who's naive?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much, it is what it is. Like, as you just said, because we're talking about bootlegging.
Yeah.
The father of John F. Kennedy, I don't know the name.
Joseph Kennedy.
Probably. But he was also part of the bootleggers. He was working with the mafia and all that stuff. He needed their help in order to get his son elected to become president. And then still they had to help him, or they had to help, yeah, I said it correctly. They had to help him in order for him to get all the votes. And it worked. He became president.
Listen, you're absolutely right, because check this
Are
out.
you
Here's,
allowed even to say this on YouTube?
yeah, it's history. Listen to these
Okay.
historical facts, right? Nucky Johnson in real life, Nucky Thompson in the series was a Republican. You can see them talking about how they don't like the Democrats, like they're all Republican. This is actual real shit here. Check this out. World War I, the president was Woodrow Wilson. He was a Democrat. World War I was over in 1918. Guess who came into office after Woodrow Wilson? It was a Republican. Harding. Guess who came in after Harding? Coolidge. He was a Republican. Guess who came in after Coolidge? Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he's the one who stopped all the shit with prohibition and made the stuff happen. But isn't it funny how all those two guys during the prohibition era were both Republican? That's crazy, right? And you think about that and you're like, wonder why they were Republican. Did the gangsters actually have political influence on them? Yes, absolutely. Just like Son of Sam with JFK. It's the same thing. But another line, and I told you this yesterday, another line that sums up this whole thing for me was that line from The Departed, what Jack Nicholson says. Growing up, everybody said you can either be a cop or you can be a criminal, and I always said, at the end of the day, when you're facing a loaded gun, what's the difference? There is no difference. There isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's great.
And just like, the GOAT of all time said, there is no dirty money. It's just money.
Exactly.
Just to have like a sit down an afternoon with him, just like, what's up, school me, sensei.
There's so much I would like to sit down and learn from a bunch of different people, and like, it's cool though, because isn't it neat how all this shit is still going on and it's still connected? I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. You know how we talked about our connected universes and how our shows all connect to each other?
Mm.
Music and show. Michael Pitt, the guy who plays Jimmy Darmody, he's a musician. And he played
Kurt Cobain, right?
I think so. But he also played in Ghost in the Shell, which we did a stream on in 2017. Oh! Right? Amazing. It's all connected. It's all connected.
Yes. But we've been screaming pepperoni for many times now, so.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
So,
then Darmody, Jimmy Darmody, and his fucked up life, pretty much. What?
Wait, why is Ange fucked up? You think Ange is fucked up?
I mean, look at the relationship he has with his, she's not his wife.
Well, she's like his common law wife. They technically were living together long enough to become common law marriage or whatever it was. But I don't know. I don't think I can understand Ange's perspective to a certain extent. Like, think about it this way.
Pizza all day.
Pizza, Little Caesars. Godfather pizza. Hey, forget about it. Yeah. And anyway.
Joe Pesci.
Yeah, forget about it, Godfather. Yeah. But the thing I feel bad for Ange about is, like, think about it this way though. Like, Jimmy goes to the war after Princeton. He basically like gets her pregnant and just leaves. He gets drafted. And he never wrote to her when he was away because he thought he was gonna die. Like, he says that in the show. Like, he thinks he thought he was gonna die, so he just felt like, what's the point of even writing to you if I'm gonna die in the war? Because World War I was pretty
same as his father.
Yeah. Yeah. So he never writes to Ange, and she's lonely. So she starts a relationship with
sniffing the fish. It's like fucking lick me.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly what it is. With another female, and it's like, I kind of feel bad for her,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of understandable, of course, you would feel lonely, etc., etc. But in the end, I think her character was unnecessary.
Well, she's only in what, 2 seasons?
Yeah, but what does she do? Like, first you get like this whole like, I mean, you have to understand people, HBO, we all know there's always like tits, full screen, whatever, and they went all out in season one. Like, the more tits, the merrier. They were thinking, I guess. So there were like a lot of scenes. It was like, okay, really, okay. But was it really necessary? Did it really add something to the general story? No, it was just like a side story that was like, okay, I'm just here to, I guess, to eat popcorn or eat pizza. Because it's not really a character that stands out. I mean, yeah, they have a kid, but because of the kid, like the kid even doesn't really bring that much value into the show. I mean, even if you
No,
look at the others.
I agree with you though. Here's the way I see it. I think you're right. I think you're right to a certain extent. I think those two characters, like Tommy and Ange, are like an extension of Jimmy, if that makes any sense. Because really, think about it. Without those characters, what reason does Jimmy have to stay in Atlantic City? The only reason he wants to get a job with Nucky and stuff is so he can support his family.
But he goes to Chicago and even never writes them.
Yeah, but he ends up coming back anyway, though. He went there because he told Anne she was going to get like
Nucky wanted him back. Like,
exactly.
Instead of buying a watch, send your kid and your
exactly.
She's
if he didn't have a family, he wouldn't need to work for Nucky. He would probably. I picture Jimmy like if he didn't have Ange and the kid, he would have came back from the war and just been an alcoholic. That's the way I picture it. And he would just sat there and drank booze. That's it. Because he's a really troubled guy. Like, he's really fucking troubled. Like, yeah. He is.
He really is. Just like his mom.
I think to a certain extent, you don't really see it in season one. I think you see more of that dynamic a lot, though, in season two, like with Ange and the kid, because it really starts to develop his story. Because at the end of season one, you know what we just talked about. Eli comes into the Commodore meets with Jimmy, and they're like, we got to take Atlantic City back from Nucky. He's like, now's my time. Now's my time to shine, baby. But
well,
why is he
what?
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, you go first, because I will jump into another character.
Here's my thing. Why is he doing that, though? He's doing it for his wife and his kid because he wants to give him a better future. Without that, he's like, well.
But I do strongly feel that if Nucky didn't say that he wanted him back, he would have never gone back. Not even care about his kid, because he wasn't caring about the kid because he was already gone for a while. He did it to kind of manipulate her because he read the letter that she wanted to leave for Paris. God damn it. And just, the whole manipulation. Like, he comes back from Chicago and like the first day he's like, I'll sit down for the breakfast. Oh, Tommy, what do you think? You want to have a baby brother? Like, he's already acting like nothing ever happened, blah, 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 blah. Like, he just wants to, like, continue what was never there, probably. But, I mean, he's a good character, though.
Like I said, though, I feel like those two characters, like Ange and Tommy, are an extension of Jimmy. But I feel bad for Ange because, in a way, she's a lot like Jimmy, too.
Yeah.
She just doesn't get the time, like, because look at her, like you just said. Without Tommy, what reason would she even have to stay with Jimmy? Or because she was going to go to that place, was she going to go away with that girl to go to Paris, or was she going to go there to tell her she couldn't be with her anymore because of Jimmy? What was she going to do?
I think she would have gone to Paris.
You think she would have went to Paris?
Yeah, because the only reason that she was tied down is because of Tommy. And she really wanted to get out of there and just, because she knew that because Jimmy working for Nucky, would probably just bring only bad stuff. And, the unfortunate thing is that, women that get knocked up, you're the women will be the one taking care of the child. And the man can go out and whatever, right? Spreading the semen or buying the lady fur coat or get another honey. So yeah, she was really just stuck in a realm that she didn't want to be part of. And here comes this other, sniffer fish. uh, who was like, let's start all over again. But
I think that's a good point, though, too. And here's another thing I just thought of when you just said that, because I wasn't thinking about it initially, but you made a good point. I think that also had something to do with the whole woman's movement and temperance and kind of tying that to it. Like, women have as much capability as men to go do stuff. Like, Ange's character was like an artist. Like, she was a really good painter. But then, like,
as the mother said, oh, you're the bohemian type.
exactly. But then you look at the mother who's saying that to her, and she's like the exact opposite. Like, Ange is pretty much at the beginning, she's an honest woman with a profession. She gets lonely because Jimmy's not there, and she goes and experiments and does something a little different, right? But then you look at Jimmy's mom, who's like complete luxurious lifestyle. She's pretty much, I mean, she's a show woman, but she's also pretty much like just bangs whoever she wants. Like, and then like you said earlier, the stuff she did with Jimmy when he was a kid, like, what happened there? I mean, like,
And
and
what she will do in season 3 is like, oh my god.
exactly. And it's kind of funny coming from her, but because think about this though too, and I don't think her character was developed enough in this series either, because Ange went to Princeton. Like, she was a really smart person. She was a really good artist. And I think when there's that scene where like her lover, the female, and her lover's husband are trying to have like a three-way with Ange, right? And Ange is like, no, I can't do this. Like, no. As soon as she like refuses to do that, and Jimmy comes in the door and comes home, he starts criticizing her work. Remember? Because then she goes to the gallery, and he's like, yeah, it's like an imitation of somebody else. It's not that good.
Oh yeah.
Because he wouldn't have sex with her. Like before, it was like, what a dick.
Yeah, because he also says like, yeah, you're not really dependent anymore since Jimmy's back. It's like, you fuck. I did it all for the nookie, but he didn't get the cookie. So stick it up.
So like for that part, I feel like that's a really cool part for her character. She's like, fuck you, dude. Like, you're a piece of shit. Like I don't like that guy.
I'm licking your girl anyway, so
Yeah. True.
But as we were talking about Nucky, you have the brother Eli, who, as I said before we started the stream, he is the Fredo Corleone of the series, the brother that wants recognition so badly but doesn't get it, and he does try so hard, just like with all the other characters, they try so hard, but because he is the brother of, it just doesn't work.
Well, I think you're right, but I want to say this too. I think there's a little bit of a variation between him and Fredo, because here's the reason why I say this. Vito, right, really, really, really loved Michael and had Michael's full confidence. Nucky didn't have his dad's confidence whatsoever. You saw the scene. Like, remember when he sells the house? Nucky tells his buddy to move into his dad's house because his dad's getting too old to take care of it. He fix it up. And he goes in and he's like, there's a barrel burning right out in front of the house. And Nucky's like, what's in that barrel? And he's like, oh, that's just stuff your old man didn't want. And it's like a bunch of Nucky's like stuff when he was a kid, like his awards and all that shit. He burned it, but he still had like Eli's trophies and sheriff shit like hanging up on the walls because he couldn't stand Nucky. He just didn't like him. And I think another thing was, in contrast to Michael Corleone, like Nucky was kind of a dick. Like Nucky kind of kept his brother around just enough to let him like have a little bit of what he had. But as soon as Eli came to him like a brother would, like I think about my brother, like if my brother came to me and said, hey man, I need help with this, I need help with that, I give it to him, you know. Nucky's kind of like jealous about it. He's like, you don't deserve it. He's like, you're not me. Whereas Michael gave like Fredo Las Vegas, he gave him like his own shit. He gave him everything, and Fredo stabbed him in the back. I think the difference is like Eli feels like his brother is like not treating him fairly enough, whereas Fredo got too much from Michael and wanted more. Like it was greed, you know. Whereas, but they are very similar though in the way they handle the situation, you know.
Especially when Nucky is going to Chicago and he's like, you run the office for a day, and he really just sits there, you know, like on this throne, like, I can take care of this shit. And that he's like, the one guy comes in asking for a favor, and he's like, no, don't worry about it. You go, you stay with your kid. We will handle the casino thing, and then he gets shot. But just really how he was sitting there like a king, and you see it happen a bunch of more times in or throughout all the seasons. Well, at least for me, till season 3, I still have to watch 4 and 5, but that he tries so hard and he keeps failing. But sometimes he does have good input. Like the only time he really gets recognition for it in public is in season 3. Finally, where when he starts talking and Nucky just looks at him like, if you spoke without permission, and then he just go ahead, and then he has his input, and he's like, oh, that's good input, thank you for your input. And just a relief on his face, like he really is also very terrified of his brother, because
he is, absolutely,
fuck knows what he can do.
Well, it's like we said before, Nucky's like a really smart dude. I think in real life too, they said he had like an eidetic memory. Like he just knew people by name. He knew their faces. He knew everything. Like he was just really fucking smart. And I like that one scene where like they're having the Celtic festival and Eli gives that speech and the people in there start like beating the shit out of each other and fighting and the cops come in and Nucky's like, you are never fucking giving a speech again. You are horrible. And it's like, that's why he is in charge of the city and you're not. Right there's the reason why,
Mm-hmm.
But then he holds up
him because he is a sheriff.
Yeah. But it's funny, the one part too where like they make Nucky basically without even Eli's knowledge is like, yeah, he stepped down from the sheriff, he resigned, blah, blah, blah. We're gonna appoint this guy. And then as soon as they get everybody they want and the pieces together and get all the politicians in order and everybody's elected and everybody's good to go, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, you're fired and my brother's back in.
Yeah.
It's like, what? But that just shows you the manipulation, how smart he was. The reason they took Eli out of the sheriff's is, first off, he was pissed at him for what he said to him. But it was also a political move to be like, I don't want him in office now because it's going to look bad when I'm pushing for these people's campaign stuff to go through, because I'm like, your brother's a sheriff. But if they look at it and they're like, oh, he resigned from his position. Interesting. And it's like, as soon as everything's in place and they get the phone call, it's like, oh yeah, he's the brand new senator or governor or whatever the hell it was. By the way, Eli, you're back.
Yeah, it's almost like Tom Hagen.
It is.
Hagen, exactly. You're out.
Exactly.
And then, of course, we're going to stick with Nucky Thompson. One of the first few times that I watched season 1, I was always kind of annoyed with her. But watching her this time around, I was like, she's actually doing a pretty good job. I'm talking about Lucy Danziger. She's played by Paz de la Huerta or something like that. Mm-hmm. She's like the showgirl girlfriend of Nucky Thompson, and she takes full advantage of it. She is dumb as fuck, so she's young, dumb, and full of cum. She is, yeah.
That is 100% true. That's a very good explanation of her character. I mean, that's actually true. That's actually true.
Lucy Danziger, she's young, dumb, full of cum. So, at one point, Nucky starts to fall for Margaret because Margaret can offer him the family that he kind of wants, blah, 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 or at least the illusion. And you see the jealousy side coming in. But just, oh shit, like, especially at the La Femme, that ridiculous French lady that sells the clothing. She's like, Margaret, you have to wash yourself a bunch of times a week because you smell. When she's like, like looking at the clothing, she's like, I want to see what it looks like on her. It's like, that's such a punchable moment. Like, you fucking bitch. And how she just sits there like, yeah, he was raised a good Catholic boy. Just how she starts judging her like, oh yeah, you had kids because your boobs are saggy. Yeah. Like, she really just starts to like degrade Margaret. Like, honey, you're not worth it. And then she's like, Margaret kind of like bites off just a little bit, like, oh, but he seems to like it though. And how she just does, like, oh yeah, like I just have to go, and then spread my legs. It's like, but at first I thought she was just like, is she constantly high or on cocaine or something? But she is playing that victimized girl pretty much. And one of the scenes that I really like is when Margaret is sitting there with the other, as you said, concubine girl.
Yeah. I forget her name,
uh,
but I yeah.
yeah.
She brings the kids over. She brings the kids over to play.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no. They are sitting outside of, or they're sitting like right out of the Le Fond clothing shop. They're drinking a coffee, whatever.
Yeah.
And Jeanette, or whatever her name is, she runs over like, Margaret. She tries to get all these expensive clothing, but Mr. Thompson's credit. And how she just starts to like diss Margaret, like, is it like Irish for bitch? Like the way that she said is like she's like fucking high as a kite. But she is just so like she really is the typical girl that you would expect, like that showgirl gangster girl that's easy to persuade. Like, oh, you just give her a necklace and she'll be satisfied. Just give her a fur coat and she'll be satisfied. Like she is that type of woman. She's that stereotype, but she does such a good job. Though she doesn't wear much of clothes throughout the entire season 1. Like she goes at it with Van Alden. I'm just like, okay.
Nelson Van Alden. Well, you know what? I was going to bring that up too with her relationship with Nucky, and then it's kind of funny because like the cool thing about her character too is there's a transition, and it's kind of cool because like at this point in time, like Sana mentioned the scene where they're at the clothing store, and Lucy wants to see this like really expensive like skirt or dress or whatever on Margaret, and that's the turning point, I think, for Margaret's character to actually realize, like, hey, look, I got more power than you think, lady, because Nucky right now is kind of in a transition where he doesn't know whether or not he wants to fully commit to Margaret and have her, like, around all the time. And he still kind of has Lucy on the back burner, so to speak. Like, she's there, too. So he's kind of, like, in between these two girls. So Lucy still thinks she can be with Nucky. And Margaret's like, I'm moving in right now. He's, like, giving me this, this, and this. So they kind of like clash and butt heads. And then, like Sana said, Nucky gets to the point where he's like, I want a family, or like to experience what it feels like to have a family, so to speak. Lucy can never give that to me. She's just like somebody I had sex with. And like she said, is like somebody who wants this, that, and that.
Kid with him. She
does, but like,
because it really is like near the end of the relationship, he's like,
yeah,
oh, I'm ready for you.
Yeah, exactly. But I think she knows that Nucky is
It's game over.
Favoring Margaret Schroeder. So like that's a really cool transitional point. And I think if it wasn't for Lucy Danziger making Margaret try that on, who knows what would have happened to her character, because she really puts her foot down and she walks out of there. She doesn't even try it on. She walks out and she's like, I quit. And she just leaves. It's like she realizes now that Nucky will do anything for her. And she kind of like she fills the shoes that Lucy had, sort of, so to speak. And really, Nucky almost gave Margaret more than he gave Lucy. He gives her like a 3-bedroom like place to stay in, even though it's with the concubines. Lucy never had that. You never see Lucy there. She's always with Nucky. She's always with Nucky somewhere, you know,
like in the office or we were fucking.
Oh, he's hilarious.
He's also an underrated character.
Mr. Kessler. He's great. What's his first name? I can't remember.
I can't remember it either. But he, like, that moment where he's like, knock, knock. Like, knock like a man. And he's like, when Luciano was there. And he's like, what the fuck? Yeah, you told me to knock in a manly fashion. But he tells it so cold. Yeah, you told me to knock in a manly fashion. Yeah, what do you want? Yeah, Mrs. Schroeder. She's very content with the accommodations.
I think his name's Harry, isn't it? Harry Kessler?
I don't know.
He was actually a real person. He actually did. He actually did. Was Nucky's assistant in real life.
But what it surprises me is that when that happened, and Luciano was already in this great position, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as Kessler said Schroeder, how his face changed, I think, that could have been used against him. Like they could have done something, even though they don't really do things against women and children. Yeah, they don't do anything. But they could have used it against him. It's only later on, like in season 3, where Rothstein is like, yeah, like that girl, that other showgirl that you're doing with in New York. It's
Mm-hmm.
only then that they get a bit personal, but never with Schroeder.
Well, I think to a certain extent, like the thing about Schroeder too is, and I think Nucky appreciates it too, is like she's not like Lucy, whereas Lucy's like like really flamboyant, really flashy, like wants everything. She's really outspoken in a bad way. She's almost like
Dumb.
yeah, yeah. Like that annoys them. So they don't really see her as a threat. But the thing is, like, Margaret is really conservative in the way she acts. And she's like Nucky, where she makes like really wise decisions for the most part. She fucks up a lot too, like later in like season three in particular. But like she also like she feels like she has sort of a power, and like Nucky empowers her too, because like you said earlier with her husband, who they end up killing, Hans Schroeder. He was abusive. He beat the shit out of her. So she's with Nucky, and she feels like she has stuff that she's never had before. And at first, she's kind of like she doesn't want to be like Lucy. She doesn't want to be this flashy person. But then she starts to become, in a way, like Lucy. But even when she starts to become like her, she's still not as like needy as Lucy. Because think of it though, like from her perspective, like she was a mother before. She raised her kids by herself without pretty much her real husband wasn't even there,
Yeah.
let alone Nucky. So she does have some like responsibility and some maturity, whereas like Lucy didn't have that. And she also has those kids to look out for. Lucy didn't have kids to look out for,
Yeah, but as I said before, like in the backstage, like that scene where she does Madame Jeanette a favor, and Madame Jeanette, right? Whatever. She wants to show her gratitude by like, oh, I bought this little pretty dress for your daughter, and then this is like ivory, and she's like, yeah, but my daughter didn't help you, keep this job. And how she just wants to go for the $480 blue dress in the end, like.
Yeah, I get that, but at the same time, like I said, she's like Nucky that way, where she's like, listen, you're going to treat me like shit, and you're going to think that I forgot what the hell you said to me? Because listen, if that madam lady was really nice to her and treated her well while she worked there, Margaret would have been like, thank you so much for the dress for my daughter. I appreciate it. But because the lady treated her like shit, and then the only reason she's given her this shit now is because she basically saved the shop from closing down because Nucky was going to like close it, was like, then she's like, oh, it wasn't my daughter. You remember, it was me. You treated me like shit. Now give me that dress. I think that's justified. That's like something I would do if I could, like, hey, listen, treat people like you want to be treated. Somebody treats you like shit. You're not like, oh, thanks a lot. Thanks for fucking stabbing me in the back. I'd be like, fuck you. I'm going to stab you in the back too. Now give me that damn dress.
So she was basically just doing the entire thing to prove a point to Madame Jeanette, you're saying?
I think so.
Because she keeps bringing it up, like, in a way towards Nucky. She's like, we shouldn't be talking about this. And the next day or something, she talks about it again. Also, that one moment where they just start fighting each other, where he grabs that bottle that she has hidden, like every time after the deed, that she puts the poison inside of her to not get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
That is also, but then she's like, basically she's like, because you haven't made me an honest woman yet. Is what she's saying. But I mean, the drama will continue, of course, in like season 2 and 3.
Well, I think it's also because she doesn't really know who he is as a person yet either. And I think that was the whole point of where she asked for that explanation from him. And he divulged a lot of information about his wife and the kid and all that stuff. Like, she didn't know who he really was. And I remember at the end of that scene, she was like, "Now I finally met you. Nice to meet you, Nucky." And then they like walk away from each other.
Yeah, but also that scene where she, because Van Alden confronts her,
Oh
and
yeah. Said that Nucky killed her husband, responsible for killing him, and like, you need to
yeah,
be redeemed and saved. You're Catholic, blah blah blah.
yeah, and she is playing the victim card again, and that she's innocent. He's like, well, if you were really that innocent, you wouldn't have accepted all of this that I
Well,
offered.
I get that, and I see that part. But I remember watching it, and I thought the same thing initially. But then watching it again, like I said, the reason I love this show so much, and probably you do too, is like these people are real.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like in real life though, I mean, like just their emotions and stuff. Like, if someone came to me and asked me that, and they were like, "Listen, you want to give up all your shit that you just got? Somebody's actually treating you with respect," and it's almost the same thing like Richard Harrow and Jimmy Darmody in that instance. They want to be accepted by somebody. Think about like Margaret Schroeder. Like Van Allen comes to her and he's like, "This guy's responsible for killing your husband." But at the end of the day, in her head, she's thinking, "I got Nucky now. My husband was a piece of shit. He beat the shit out of me. He treated me like shit. He made the kids cry. He was never around. I'm glad he's dead." Right? Like, she's probably thinking that, like, I'm glad he's gone. She would never probably admit it, but in her head, she's probably thinking, I'm glad that piece of shit's dead.
Yeah, because she is playing the victim, and he's like, yeah, but he beat the shit out of you, and he killed your unborn child, and that's where she's like, oh fuck, that didn't work this time. But he was really coming at her, and he was right, because she wouldn't have to leave, as the neighbor said when Van Alden wanted to visit her. She's like, oh no, she's not there anymore. She left in this big car, and she's a whore, and she walks back inside.
Yeah, but I think that's the whole point, though, is like, who can she trust? Can she really trust Van Allen? She doesn't even know the fucking guy. He just shows up and he's like, hey, blah, blah.
But can she trust Lucky?
That's my point, though.
He gave her only money, and suddenly he's like, woo.
But Nucky gave her a place to live. He's taking care of her family. What's Van Alden done? Is she going to go back to square one when they lock Nucky up? She's thinking about that. She's thinking, like, if Nucky gets locked up, who the fuck's going to take care of me? Am I going to go back to living in a shitty house?
Nucky is right.
I don't know who's right. That's my point.
If she was innocent and true to herself, she would have stayed where she was and get a job and be honest. But yet she let Nucky take care of the job part, where she already knew, like, okay, favoritism is going to come in because that's how the shit work in that world. She knew exactly what she was doing, and he was right, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from. Like I'm saying, I don't know who's right or wrong. I think it all depends on the character and their perception of what's right or wrong. Like, but then again, look at Van Alden. He's telling her to do all this shit. Then later, he does the exact same thing she did. Like, he becomes a villainous character. It's like that stuff does that to you, you know?
Yeah, he is Van Alden. Oh my god, he's amazing. Who else can we? Well, is there, because we're already going in for like an hour and a half almost?
Doesn't matter. The show's amazing.
Yeah, true. So if first thought counts of the entire season, what scene comes to your mind, like right now when I say which scene stood out for you? First thought count. Bum.
The first scene that comes to mind that stands out for me.
Yeah.
I think we kind of talked about it before, and it might not be the best season in the series, but I really, really, really like that scene with Richard Harrow and the cafe with Jimmy Darmody. And I know that that's not like the greatest scene in the entire series, but for me, that really sums up the entire series. And maybe there are other scenes that might do it better, but I think for me and who I am as a person and what I like about the series and what I like about the characters is all presented in even the time period, like studying this historical time period, even it's all presented right there in that scene. And the reason I love it so much is it refers back to all the other stuff. It refers back to Godfather, in that scene with Michael where he goes in and shoots the guy. It's like the same kind of concept. Like they're in a cafe, they're eating, they tag the guy on the shoulder, like he shoots. It's the same conceptual stuff. It's the same thing in Goodfellas. It's the same thing in a bunch of mob movies.
Yeah.
And seeing that in that series, I was like, this is fucking awesome because it reminded me of all the old shit I love. But it also reminds you of how World War I was really cruel because you have two veterans there, and then you have it kind of secretly slips you breadcrumbs of stuff. During like when the guys came back from World War I, and even in that, I'm gonna go to another scene here just to compare it to this scene. When Jimmy drags that shopkeeper guy out of the place, the artist place, and he throws him through the pane glass window and he starts beating him with the tripod of the camera.
Yeah.
And he starts screaming because everybody's gathering around like they're going to call people. And he goes, this guy had sex with my wife when I was away in the war. And everybody kind of like backed off a little bit. They were like, okay, this guy's a vet. He has a right to beat the shit out of this guy. It was like people who served back then didn't get recognition at all. And they really were. Oh, yeah. And they really were against people who somehow dodged the draft, like the guy that got assassinated and was a gangster that Richard Harlow kills. That whole scene was amazing to me because you got two World War I vets who are both looking for acceptance and trying to move up in the ladder, taking out this gangster guy who pretty much got. I love that scene too because it really compares like people who come from nothing and are trying to make a living for themselves to somebody who pretty much got handed everything their entire life. Like this guy was like sitting there, he got a job, he didn't serve in the military, he didn't get jack shit, he got whatever he wanted. He goes up and slashes Jimmy's, girlfriend in Chicago, the whore, her face. What was her name? I think it was can't think of her name. I think it was after like a flower.
Remember? Lily?
Nah, it wasn't Lily. What was her name?
Lib.
Crap. I can't think of it. I cannot think of her name. I'm drawing a blank. Pearl. Her name was Pearl. It wasn't a flower.
Oh, it sounds like a flower.
Sorry. Yeah. I meant a gem, a jewel. Yeah,
a jewel.
Pearl.
Hey, Sean.
What's up, Sean? Yeah, but that whole scene meant so much to me watching it because, like I said, it made me think about all the older movies. It made me think about World War I. It made me think about like lower class versus like privileged class people. And that's really what this time period was about. You have like all these people with prohibition. You're not supposed to do. It really made me think of religion, like just watching that and how.
Makes you think of Titanic.
No, not Titanic. But...
How the rich people are allowed to go on the boat first, and all the poor people have to stay on. That made me very angry as a kid.
Didn't make me think of that, but that component's there, right?
It was only 4 years later.
But I thought it was cool. I just really like that line where Jimmy talks about how he was in the war and how he just like saw shit.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was a really cool scene. That's the one that always comes to my mind when I watch it because I love Richard Harlow as a character. I think he's fucking amazing. And Jimmy was one of my favorite characters. And then, like you said, after season 2, it was like, fuck, this show sucks. Then you watch season 3, and you're like, this show's pretty badass. Sorry.
This is the best thing ever.
Yeah. Season 3, you're like, Jupiter City's pretty badass.
Yeah, I'd hit that. What? For me, the scene that really stands out, like first thought counts, is the baptism scene.
That's a really powerful scene. Yeah. Yeah. For the same reasons why the sniper scene is so powerful. It's really, I mean, why does that stand out to you?
Well, because he is already questioning. What's his name again? Sub-Zero.
Yeah, Sub-Zero.
Gave to the village. What?
And he drowned.
Oh my god! When he already hides the telegram, he already gets skeptic. When he's sitting at the restaurant bar with him, he's like, so he took a leak and he started attacking you and he hit you in the forehead and all that. Like he already, like, it's just a matter of, okay, like this guy is already flipping in a way because he is already drinking fucking whiskey. He already went with Lucy the showgirl. like crying or something when he and here he is again back in middle of nowhere, where again the Christian people, the evangelists are there, and the baptism is going on, and he's like, yeah, but you accept everyone because Sub-Zero, he's Jewish, which technically, he should be able to be baptized, but that's a minor thing. How he is just like, I just bought these shoes. And then he walks into the water. He's like, okay, let's just get this over with. This guy is already flipping. He's probably going to get fired soon because even the chief guy is like not really liking the fact how he's so obsessed with this case and he just won't stop. So let's just go with it. And then he's like, do you believe in Jesus? And he goes like that. I was like, wow. And he keeps on doing it. Like, and the guy, he just stands there, the priest, like, what's going on? How everyone is like responding to it. Like, what's he doing? Like, he's not going to survive. That is just, for me, one of that. Just his character alone is, maybe he should be number one. I don't know. He is.
He's my number one with Nucky, baby. The split.
But then again, I think of Rothstein. I'm just like, no, Rothstein is a fucking boss.
Yeah,
fucking
Rothstein.
Boss.
What was his first name? Arnold.
Arnold AR.
Arnold. In real life, his name is Arnold the Brain Rothstein. He's a really smart dude. So, like, another thing about that scene that I love that you mentioned, Sonnet, is it really critiques, like I said, religion and how if you go too far to the extreme, bad shit happens. You can't. Another thing with that is you can't purify everything. Sometimes things aren't that bad. Sometimes you're making a big deal out of something that really isn't that bad. Like prohibition. That scene when he drowned Sebso, like pretty much, for me, that was almost a scene like he's actually killing a part of himself because like Sebso's a prohibition agent too, right? And isn't it funny how he kills Sebso because he was lying and doing all this devious shit, and then he does the same fucking thing. As soon as he kills him, he was doing it before Sebso was doing it. He was having sexual relations with Nucky's ex-girlfriend. I mean, but he kills Sebso for the same things he's doing. So how, even though he pretends he's this devout Christian guy, he really isn't on the surface. That's the point. So he was actually killing.
The way that when he asks Sub-Zero, I'm just going to stick with Sub-Zero.
Sub-Zero.
He's like, yeah, but you don't believe in heaven, right? It's true. In Judaism, you don't really believe in that. And it's only in Christianity where there's like heaven and hell. But it's also being said that it is created by the one, right? Like there is bad, but there's also good. It's just a natural thing. Whereas a lot of these Christian people, they go fucking apeshit. Like everything that's like, oh no, it's the devil, it's this, it's that. Yeah, but it is created by, like you need it in order to have balance.
Oh yeah.
Like using, I'm derailing. I totally forgot where I was going to with this.
You were talking balance, heaven and hell, Christianity versus Judaism.
Yeah. It's something about, how he just wanted to attack Sub-Zero, but I'm totally lost. I'm sorry, people. It's that time of the night again. I'm experiencing like a lot of daylight lately. It's kind of scary. I guess that's why.
You need the good to balance out the darkness, the evil. Hence the daylight.
Right? Like I go to work and it's still dark, and I see the light come up and I see it go down. So it's like, ew. But yeah, like I guess that was my point. Like he really just wants to stick to like everything that is good. Everything has to be purified. Everything can be purified. But then, as you just said, there's good and there's evil, and there is no bad money. Like le bébé.
The thing about him too is
for me. I fell for you too, baby.
He fell for you. Yeah. The thing about Van Alden too is after that scene, he tries to like flee town, and he makes it look like he just wants to quit the force, but he's actually leaving because he knows he murdered somebody. Then he goes back home to his wife, remember, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't want to do the Atlantic City thing anymore. I don't want to be a federal agent. I think my uncle has a business I can join, and blah 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 blah. What do you think? You liked it up there when we went, remember?" And he's trying to change the topic, and he's just as bad as all the other characters he's fighting after. That's why he's such a cool character, because he really showcases the
duality.
Well, yeah, the duality, but also the human.
I guess that was the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, the human need for like material stuff, and the human like always craving and want for like power. Like even though he's trying to fight against prohibition, he's always finding himself participating in it somehow. It's like this constant struggle.
I just reminded, like, I see the flags being put on the map. When Margaret Schroeder is being somewhat, like, denied by Nucky Thompson, right? She goes to, like, she's working out for in La Femme, where she wears, like, this sexy underwear. She's like, oh, I'm going to visit Mr. Thompson. And then when she arrives, there's a party going on inside. And the other guy, what's his name again? It's a German.
Oh, Kessler.
He's like, Mr. Thompson will not be able to see anyone today. He's kind of busy. You see, like, this whole entire party going on, and she gets so upset. Then suddenly she goes to Van Alden, and she's like, "Yes, I've seen liquor across the street in a garage."
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. Then they seize it.
Yeah, and then What it's an Irish Day. What's it thing? What's it called?
The Celtic Festival.
Where the raid is happening.
Yeah.
Oh, the way that he looks at her, like, it was
He's
you.
Like, you fucking
you cunt. I'm gonna buy you a house. Give you money.
You know what? That's a really good point, though, too. I never thought of it that way. Does he really love Margaret Schroeder, or is he using her just like he used Lucy, so she doesn't get in the way of his plans?
Because he was also really impressed how she was. It was his birthday. She had to deliver the dress, and how she was like talking to the other politicians, about women voting. He was kind of impressed, by how she was like putting the one guy in his place, like, whatever, like, women are allowed to vote. How he also uses her later on, as she says, like, am I of use, whatever, and he wants to. Women are allowed to vote, and he wants her to give a speech for this mayor guy. And she's really nervous, and then she gives the speech, and then she's done, she sits down, and she sees basically Nucky and the two other guys, like, this guy think really he's going to be the next mayor. Like, she is like, I'm part of this conspiracy. Is this what I want? What do I catch in return, Mr. Thompson?
Yeah, it's kind of cool, though. It's like you said, there's no such thing as dirty money. It's just money. Like, listen. Yeah. You made your choice. You made your bed, But, yeah, I mean, the show's great. I love it. I mean, I love how it's really, I'm not saying it's historically accurate to a T, but there is a lot of historical accuracy in it. Like, the Atlantic City stuff that actually happened is real. All the jazz stuff that happens is real. A lot of the characters in it were actually real people. Even though they're kind of like, exaggerated a little bit, they're real. Just an amazing show. I mean, it's really, really good. Like I said, I remember when my friend told me about it, and I watched it because the show that I watched before this that I love was The Sopranos. And I like Steve Buscemi in that show too. Steve Buscemi was in The Sopranos too, It's like,
well, we got to do The Sopranos too one day.
At some point,
I'm now at season 6 because this is the first time me watching season 6, and I'm just so afraid because it's near the end, and I know that there will be like this big black hole, this gap, in my soul. Like it's now it's finished. So I'm trying to not really go at it just yet. But like every season, well, aside from season 1, but season 2, you have like Richie, which I think is still the best other new character that came in. That he went with Janice, and how Janice is like, Tony, it was an accident that she shot. And then later on you have the other guy. What's his name? He's also in The Boys,
Who is it?
and he is also in The Matrix.
Oh, shit! What the hell? Joe Pantoliano? That guy?
Yeah, with the more blonde hair. Like he is, I think, in
Yeah, I forget who
season.
he plays. I forget his name in the show, but yeah, it's Joe Pantoliano.
Yeah, and then later on you get Steve Buscemi, and I think I mean, just looking back on it, I think the Richie guy is still the best. Because he just went toe to toe with Tony, but that's for the whole other show.
But yeah, that's a good point too, because I love, like, I remember like years ago when I was like picking out TV series, and I think you and I talked about this a little bit before. HBO just like has the best shit. Like it's always good. But I will say this about them: the one thing that pisses me off is they have all this really cool shit, and then like it's over too soon. Like
Yeah,
Boardwalk Empire was only 5 seasons. They ended it way too soon, and honestly, like I didn't like the way it ended. But the first 3 seasons are amazing. Sopranos is like one show that I can say, like, throughout the 6 seasons, and there's 2 parts to season 6. It's really kind of like 7 seasons almost. Like, it was a pretty fucking like badass show, and it was like I'm not saying it was perfect, but it was like really coherent throughout, and it starts really well and it ends pretty decent. Like you're not really upset with it. You kind of are because it's over, but you're not like that sucked. You're like, it's decent for what it was. Then you have like Boardwalk Empire. You're like, oh my god, what did they do there? And then you have like Game of Thrones. It's like, no, what did they do there? And then you have Watchmen, which is only 1 season. They could have made that a franchise. It's like, come on.
Westworld.
Westworld season 1 was amazing. 2 and 3, I was like,
Mm.
what are you doing?
Yeah, just like with bringing it all back to Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah.
And the Mr. Luciano.
Yeah.
How did they never continue with this? Even if it's just,
Exactly.
they can make it they can make a badass series like with the Castellamare war, and then like Luciano plotting like, okay, we're gonna eliminate this motherfucker, and then we're gonna eliminate that motherfucker, and then I will be the king of New York, which he basically was. I think that could be like such an interesting show, especially with the commission and all that stuff. For all I care, till the part where with his trial, how they really just wanted him.
Yeah.
To go, yesterday, they really just wanted him to go to jail just to send a message, even though. Oh fuck!
No, you're
Maybe
right.
I should write my Luciano series.
It's great. It is a great series, but I think you're right. I think they.
Series me banging him, but no.
I think they should do a spin-off series or something. Yeah.
Yeah, like just the whole thing. It's just interesting, Also with like Genovese, how he.
The five, just do something about the 5 families, like you said, and just make a series about it. You can make like a 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or even 10 series, like show about that stuff, because there's so much history there. You and I just talked about it yesterday.
For family, and then how it all slowly gets tied together, and that you really get to know all these characters in depth, because
yeah, but
like John Kennedy.
The thing that sucks about it is, though, people like complain about it. They're like, well, it's too much like The Sopranos. It's like, who cares? Like, do it. If you like something, just do it. Like, I don't know.
They can also do like this whole fucking segment on like Frank Sinatra, and
you're gonna have to watch that series I told you about, Magic City. It takes place in Florida, but it's about the Jewish mafia. It's about the Jewish mafia. It's a
Magic
Jewish,
City.
yeah. Jeffrey Dean Morgan's in it. He plays like a henchman for this Jewish mob boss. It's pretty decent, but like I said, there's like they could have did so much more with that. I think that's only 2 seasons or 3 seasons or something like that. It's like you guys could do so much more than what you're doing, you know?
Even if it's just, with Rothstein and Meyer, like these were the Jewish guys that were not they weren't part of the Cosa Nostra, but they were like the fucking
Businessmen.
puppeteers,
Yeah.
you know?
We don't know what happened to Rothstein. He got shot, so that'll be a short season. I'm just kidding. Meyer Lanskey though, lived a long, nice life.
Yeah. So many people live in that.
So, yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it, Son. I mean, we kind of talked about the series a lot. I mean, if you guys are looking for something, if you guys have never seen Boardwalk Empire and you're looking for something that is related to history and actually stars historical characters, I mean, seriously, historical characters. And like we said in this stream, it's not necessarily 100% historically accurate. It's a TV show. Keep that in mind. It's for entertainment purposes as well. But what they do with it and how Terrence Winter, the creator, and Mark Wahlberg and Martin Scorsese produced this show, it's really fucking good, especially the first 3 seasons. And they really harken back to the movies and stuff that I just mentioned, like that scene I mentioned in the restaurant with Jimmy and Richard Harrow in the window and the mob boss guy. Like, if you like The Godfather, if you like Goodfellas, if you're interested in Atlantic City, New Jersey, if you're interested in the Prohibition era, if you're interested in jazz music, if you're interested in, corruption and conspiracy theories and all that kind of shit, watch this show because it has all that. Like, it has everything.
And it's really good. It was 100 years ago.
Yeah. And I mean, this actually happened 100 years ago. And like I said, too, it's funny to see it from these guys' perspectives because it makes you think in your head, like me as a person, like, was what they were doing really that bad? Like I said, with the gambling and the prostitution, maybe, but now prostitution's legal in Las Vegas. So really, was it really that bad? And the prohibition stuff with alcohol, everybody drinks alcohol now. Was it really that bad? And the fact that the government like ratified it and they were like, by the way, the 21st Amendment of the United States Constitution, you're allowed to buy and sell alcohol in America. Make us some money, guys. Let's get us out of the depression here. It's like, you basically just became the criminals. So it's interesting to me. And like Sana said, that's why we're fascinated by it, because it makes you really think in your head, like, were these guys really as bad as what people said they were? And yeah, they were. They killed people. I mean, you shouldn't kill anybody.
But then as it happens in The Godfather, the scene that I told about earlier, when Kay's like, yeah, but the government doesn't kill people.
Yeah, and that's a good point. The thing is, these people kill people when you know about it because they don't have, well, some of them actually do have political protection. And these people that we talk about, who knows how many people historically that we don't know anything about that actually kill people that we know nothing about. And the only reason we know about these guys is because they made money and because they were popular and because they did this, this, and this. And even look at Lucky Luciano. He was supposed to serve 40 to 50 years in jail. 40 to 50 years. Basically a life sentence, let's just say. Because at that time, he was like, what, in his 40s, I think? 30s? He was supposed to serve a life sentence. But he made a deal. I think, didn't Meyer Lanskey help craft the deal to be like, you know what? He's going to give you guys some naval intelligence. How about we just deport him back to Sicily and let him live a happily ever after life? I mean, come on. Like, the government was like, yeah, go ahead. You kill people? Yeah, that's all right. Go ahead. Come on. We need that intelligence. That's more important than the fact that he had people killed. It's like,
says a whole lot. Who's
more corrupt? The guys who were supposed to arrest the guy and put him in jail for 50 years? The guy who actually killed the people? Like, come on. Right? But that's why these guys are so fascinating, because it makes you feel like, you know what?
Makes you think.
It makes you think, like, these guys are pretty fucking smart.
Yeah.
What if the tables were turned? What if these guys were government officials? What if these guys were, like, politicians and FBI agents?
Luciano.
Yeah, what if Luciano was like, What if Luciano was like a fucking the president of the United States? Or he couldn't be, but what if he was a governor? What else would he have done? How much more power would he would have had? I mean,
I mean, these guys built fucking Vegas.
Yeah, and it's called Boardwalk Empire for a reason. Like literally, Nucky Johnson was the kingpin, the emperor of this empire in Atlantic City. He was almost like a czar, and I think the quote in there from the Commodore. We didn't really talk about the Commodore too much, but he's barely in it the first season. He's in there a little bit, but he says, "What do you think you are, the czar?" And he really is. Like Nucky Thompson is like a czar. He's like the Kaiser. He's like the Roman emperor of Atlantic City. And it's like the same thing. If you guys ever study history and you read about antiquity and you study about like the Roman emperors and all the assassinations and all the political stuff that happens and how people get each other assassinated for war or for money or for status or for power or for all that stuff, the mafia is like the modern day representation of that. But back then, there was no distinction between like political people and gangsters. Like it was all the same shit. Now it's like, these guys are criminals. Can't have that.
And, Luciano was about to become the king of New York.
Until he had to say, hasta la vista. And he died in what? Campania, Naples?
Napoli.
Yeah, Naples. Yeah, Napoli. Yeah, exactly. And he died of what? Just old age, right?
Heart attack.
He had a heart attack. He died of a heart attack. Al Capone died of syphilis. Arnold Rothstein got shot. Nucky Johnson, actually, I think died of a heart attack too, but I think he was old. Like he lived his life. He was older when he died. Some of these guys, I mean, Meyer Lanskey died of old age. Like these people were real people. Who else?
Gambino died of old age.
Gambino, Joe Bonanno.
Also.
John Gotti. Who else? The guy who took over for Gotti, I can't remember his name, but he's in jail. He's serving a life sentence now. What was his name? He's like the modern day leader of the Gambino crime family. I can't remember his name.
I don't know much about the modern day.
Because you had John, and then you had wasn't his son named Peter Gambino, or excuse me, Peter Gotti, and people said Peter Gotti was like the worst Don ever. I forget, but he got, I think he might have got jail time or he got killed or something like that, and then somebody else is the new leader, and he just went to jail like in 2018 or 19, I think. They just put him in jail. No, this is what happened. So let me rephrase that. Oh. It was John Gotti. Then there was his underboss who succeeded him, and then he got the underboss who succeeded John Gotti. I can't remember his name. He actually just died last year. They shot him in a car outside of New York. Somebody opened the door and killed him and shot him. And they said they thought it was over a romantic relationship dispute because this mob boss was seeing this one guy's like wife or girlfriend or something, and he killed him. And then after he died, he was only like 48 or something like that, 50 something. They put this new guy in, and then this new guy was in charge for a couple of years, and then he got, or a year or so, and they just said he went to jail or something on charges. He has like a 10-year, 20-year sentence or some shit.
Yeah, I hope, regarding John Gotti, I mean, I do have the movie with John Travolta, which I'm not sure. There's also another movie of John Gotti from the 90s, but I have this book, as I showed you, The Underboss, with about Sammy the Bull Gravano, the one that was his right hand for so long.
So yeah, anything else to say about the series? What do you think?
It's amazing. Probably season 2 will be the top of town sooner or later, I guess, because we have to get to season 3.
Then after season 3, we're just not going to talk about Boardwalk Empire anymore because season 3 is like the high point of the series, and then it kind of goes like, for me, it's like, well, actually, it's like 1 is really good, 2 is really good, and 3 they're like all together up here. They're like really good. And then 4, and 5.
remember when I saw season 3, because life happened and I was a bit out of it, and then I saw season 3 like pretty cheap. I was like, fuck it, I want to buy it now. And I even hold it off by watching it, but then I finally sat down. I was like, okay, let's watch this shit. And then Jip Rossetti comes in. I was like, oh, this is the character that I was waiting for. This is that fucking fucked up
Yes.
Italian you don't want to fucking mess with. Like you
Yeah.
do not want to look at him like strangely. Like he will just punch the shit out of you. Just like his very first introduction when the tire or something is broken down and the guy's just not like it's just a tool. Like what are you, a fucking idiot? Like you don't know it's just a tool. And then he just starts like smashing the guy, like just ding.
Yeah.
Snap.
Sana and I talked about this before the stream when we were backstage. Like, the reason why I put Luciano and Capone at the bottom of the list is because of Jip Rossetti, because like that was how I wanted Luciano and Capone to be in the first season.
Yeah.
And they're not. Like they're not like that throughout the entire series. Jip Rossetti makes up
He owns them.
he's both of them. Yeah, he's like Luciano and Capone combined. Like he's a really smart mob boss, but he's also like, I don't know, he's like Capone. He has that rage. He has that kind of like intensity.
Yeah. But then there's this one scene though with Al Capone where one of the people that works for him, the somewhat overweight guy, he's like telling like, oh man, you smell, you should do
Oh
something
yeah,
about
yeah,
it. And then he gets beaten up and he's like, Al, it really hurts, and he really starts talking the story, and he's like, and Al Capone is already gone. Al Capone is ready to smash in the fucking head. But one of the scenes, of course, of 3 is the most famous scene that you and I probably talk about a lot, which is that sit down scene where Nucky is like breaking down, like, okay, there's no more alcohol. I'm just gonna do it straight through. What's his name, Rothstein?
yeah, yeah.
And Chip Rossetti starts talking like, that figures it. This chick I know, she said it was like you at Pig, and he like turned out his cigarette. I was like, oh snap! And then he just starts fucking going at it at everyone. But what I really like there, because he disses Luciano, he would have never gotten away with that in real life. Like it would have been like a showdown right away, or at least a week later. But when he starts attacking Rothstein, like you look like a dentist on. No, you're walking around like a dentist on ether or something like that. But he just sits there, with his cup, like that smirk. You're just like, dude, you just dig your own grave. Because especially when they're sitting at that restaurant, and he's like to the paper boy, he's like, yeah, just make sure you deliver it now to this in this room, and you see it like Rothstein, like, you're staying in that room. Good to know.
Yeah, and Son and I talked about him too. He kind of reminds us of we said this, I think maybe even in the Godfather stream or Goodfellas. He kind of like reminds us of like Santino, just like a really hot-headed guy who wants stuff now, but he's not as, I don't think he's as naive as Santino. Santino's a little too naive. Like Jip Rossetti's actually like pretty powerful. Like these guys are actually afraid of him, like in season 3. But then it kind of gets the best of him after a while. But he's kind of scary.
Yeah, like, the only thing that he's afraid of is his wife. Yeah. That's such a good scene. But also just like, like the fucking thing around the neck. What is it? Belt?
Yeah, it takes a belt, makes like a collar. Yeah, he's in the S&M shit.
And he just passes out. She's like, this person, I'm a towel. I'm like, fuck, this guy is nuts. But that's for another time, because otherwise the stream will take on forever. What about tomorrow?
Yeah. Now, guys, here. Sana asked me before this, and we usually do music and show after we do movies and show, and we do it vice versa, music. But you know what? We decided that, first off, I want to say this before we end this. I don't want to say this. Rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen, because he was amazing. We'll probably do something with that down the road. But tomorrow, I really, 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 really want to do the movie Heat with De Niro and Pacino and Val Kilmer, directed by Michael Mann. Yeah, I just fucking love that movie. I just told Sana, like, I just got like the special director's cut edition of it, and I watched it like 3 times in the past couple of days because it's so good. But I really want to do that. So we're probably more than likely 100% going to do that tomorrow. So that'll be on my channel tomorrow. Heat. We're going to do it at 3 again, right, Sana?
Yeah, or 4. Depends, because I have Monday off, so it's just that tomorrow I have to leave very early.
Yeah, let's do it at 3. That way you have an hour ahead. Is that cool?
Whatever. Yeah, it's cool. If that's what you want to do.
It's either going to be at 3 or 4. We're going to talk about it, and then we'll let you guys know.
We'll be on at 5.
Yeah, well, technical difficulties came up, guys. I want to start until 7 tonight.
So thank you, everybody in the chat. Who was here today? Lucy was here. Kirk, Sean, and our in spirit, like, because I know he will watch this probably later on. Freaky Louie.
Louie, yeah. I got 5 comics.
So that was it. This was Boardwalk Empire season 1
Yeah,
with
right
the infamous, fucking awesome Don Luciano.
He's in it. He's in
it. I know another place he should be in, but that's for another time period. So,
wow.
Buonasera.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci. And thank you, Sean. Thank you for popping in and
thanks, Sean.
All that good stuff. Ciao.
Ciao.